All right, everybody. We have a good crowd in here, and I don't want you to wait any longer because you're all here on time. I really appreciate it again, and thank you so much for coming. So first, I'm going to start off by introducing myself. My name is Alex Navarro. I work here at Metropolitan Boston Real Estate. I am a realtor, and most importantly for tonight, I am an accredited buyer representative, negotiation expert, and a pricing strategy advisor. So I am here to help my clients to the best of my ability achieve their real estate goals for their first home purchase, second, third, fourth, fifth, doesn't really matter. I am here to help. And I also would like to introduce to you my lending partner here, Eileen Cohen from Guaranteed Rate.
Hi, everybody. So happy you could join us. This is exciting. We have a lot to tell you about tonight, but just to get started, I am a mortgage lender. I've been doing it for 20 years. That means I help people figure out what they qualify for, how to make it happen. I work with people like Alex to get the offers accepted and hold people's hands, especially first-time home buyers, all the way through the process until they get the keys and they're homeowners. So we're here tonight to help you answer any questions at all and see what we can do to get some new homeowners in Massachusetts.
Thanks, Eileen.
Thanks, Alex.
We're going to be hearing even more from Eileen later on in the presentation, but I first want to actually hear from you guys. Feel free to write into the chat box. What are your expectations of the home buying process, or what have you heard about the market? What's the buzz in your ear? You're welcome to unmute too if you would like to just chime in for this section. The market will crash. That's a great one. We do hear that in the news frequently because of all the crazy stuff that's going on. But all of the experts that Eileen and I work with see really no sign of that happening whatsoever. What's really wonderful even more about being in the greater Boston area is how valuable and sought after a home is in this area. It does make it harder to get into it as a first-time buyer, but it's a very safe place for you to make your first home purchase. Even during the worst of times, greater Boston is always super insulated, which is really nice.
What about gateway cities?
What do you mean by that question?
Are we going to be discussing the possibilities of buying homes in gateway cities and what that means in the home buying process?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to say something, Eileen.
No, but I can.
Yeah, that'd be.
So basically, gateway cities are part of what we're going to talk about tonight as far as different things that you qualify for. But were you asking in like relationship to our properties in gateway cities going to crash? Or were you just talking about, are we going to talk about gateway cities as far as buying?
Yeah, just as far as buying.
Okay, yeah, that's part of what we're going to talk about tonight. Absolutely. That's okay. A big piece of it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent question. We have another one in the chat. You have to pay down your debt to under 50% before you buy a home. Another one for Eileen.
So are you talking about like credit card debt to pay it down so that the balances are 50% or less? Is that what you mean? Who's ever asking that question?
Keisha? Yeah, we'll just assume general debt, any debt.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's good to pay down your debt, but it really depends on the whole picture because everybody's picture is different. If you have really good income and your debt load is a little high, you might still perfectly qualify. That's the thing where these questions or things or statements, especially online, where people make these, comments stating this is what it is. And that's not always true because everybody's situation is a little different and everything has to be analyzed to figure it out. So before you're like, oh my God, I can't possibly buy now because I've got to pay my debt down, you should see, maybe you qualify as it is, but maybe you still do want to pay your debt down. But this program in particular that we're going to talk about tonight, or we're going to focus on, it is fleeting. There was $65 million that was released, and there's not a good or even decent mortgage lender or realtor in the state that is not talking about this nonstop. And Mass Housing is not letting us know how much money is left. But I'm going to make an assumption here. I don't like making assumptions. I'm going to say the money's probably all going to be gone by January, maybe February. So this is not something like, oh, we're going to start saving now and we're going to want to do this program next year, because this was a grant, a very special grant. And when the money's gone, the money's gone. But we'll get more into that. So that was a great question, though, because people do hear that. So again, case by case basis.
Thanks, Eileen. That was an excellent question. We had a couple more here. One of them is one we hear often as well, is best to wait until spring because the interest rates are too high. Well, none of us have a crystal ball, but the interest rates are likely to continue to go up. And we are all quite convinced that prices will also continue to go up. So in my opinion, now is the best time to buy a home in the next several years. So I don't believe that waiting would be the best advice, but sometimes you have to wait. Maybe you still need to do some more saving. But either way, like Eileen said, if you are qualified for this program, now is definitely the time to go for it. And I can answer one more question. We're going to move on. And that was, what is the highest salary to qualify for? I'm actually not going to answer that. Sorry. I'm going to let Eileen answer that later on in the presentation
Right,
with a slide.
I'll go into more detail on that later. Yes. And somebody was saying, is the Mass grant for
selected cities?
No. So the grant, this is the only part I'm going to say about it now, so that we'll get some continuity later. In order to qualify for the grant, you must currently live in one of 29 communities, but you can buy anywhere in Massachusetts. But that's where it gets tricky, because then where you're buying has its own overlays. So it's definitely a tricky situation, which is why you need somebody's help to help you navigate it. But that's what we're here for.
Awesome. Thank you. And speaking of navigating, I want to talk to you a little bit now about the actual steps to buying your first home. And in order to have this go smoothly, you need to start off by understanding the process, which we're going to talk about in brief here. You need to make sure you work with the right agent. And to make sure that's easy for you guys, I'm going to put my contact info in the chat here, and you'll see a link. That link is connected directly to my personal calendar. So please go ahead, get yourself a slot on there for a call, and we can talk about your unique situation and further connect you with Eileen and work together as a trio to get you your first home purchased. Because what we'll need to do next after we have our chat is to connect you with Eileen so she can help you get pre-approved. And then once you get that pre-approval, things get real and we start that actual home search. So what does the home buying process really look like? Number one, as I just mentioned, you're going to meet with a qualified expert realtor and you're going to start to make a plan. Once you've got that plan, you're going to connect with your lender, get that pre-approval, and begin your search. Now, your search is going to start off, if you're working with me, in a way that's going to help you narrow down what you would like and what you would love. Because a lot of you, if you're a first-time home buyer, you might have never even been to a open house before, or been in a lot of other very different homes. So I find it really helpful to go out and see a wide variety of homes your first week or two, so that you can see things and say, oh man, I love that, or oh, that's absolutely terrible. I don't want to live with something like that. And that way you and I can narrow down your search and really make the next steps a lot more effective and efficient, so that you're not going to dozens and dozens of homes and making dozens of offers. You're going to a handful of homes and making a couple offers. And speaking of which, once you do get ready to make an offer, you've found a property that you really love, you and I are going to strategize together to create the most attractive offer so that you can beat out that competition and win the home of your dreams. From there, once your offer is accepted, there's something called the due diligence period before the next contract comes up. During that period, we'll be doing things like home inspections, more research on the property. If it's a condo, you might be working with your attorney to analyze the condo docs and see what, the condominium's budget and all these great things. So once that due diligence period is over and you're satisfied, you move into the purchase and sale contract, which is, what I call the big kid contract. That's when things get truly serious and, you're much closer to purchasing that home. And after the purchase and sale is signed, it's actually kind of a waiting game. And now Eileen is going to be taking over and getting all of the residual paperwork together and making sure that the home appraises and the mortgage is lined up for closing. That closing is really the most exciting day. You're going to get to the closing attorney's office, sign the papers, and soon after you walk out of that office, you'll be able to get the keys to your new home. You'll start painting and decorating and doing all that fun stuff. If there are any questions, by the way, please feel free to toss them in the chat, and I'm happy to keep an eye on that. So why would you want to work with someone like me, with a realtor? It's because we're experienced professionals. We do this on a daily basis. Much like you don't represent yourself in court or do surgery on your own teeth. You go for an attorney, you get a dentist to do those things. That's why realtors are here to help you with that. We do understand the local market with great detail. We spend all our days and nights researching it. We have a little bit more searching power, although now with everything being public, you guys have almost as much search power as we do, but we have the experience to help you kind of weed out the good stuff from the bad stuff ahead of time, and give you expert analysis as well, and help you understand what the value of a home is that you're interested in. Because this is something we'll get into more probably on a one-on-one basis, but the listing price is never the value of the home. This is a made-up number that the seller and the listing agent have decided they want to try and sell it for. The value of the home is much more complicated than that. So I'm here to help you understand that. Not only that, to negotiate on your behalf with the listing agent, with the seller, with all the other parties involved, and really manage the project for you. We've broken it down into what seems like just a few steps, but this is a complicated process, and having someone there by your side that is an expert at this process is vital to keeping your head from exploding. You're going to be making the probably largest investment in your life. It's really helpful to have a trusted advisor on hand. And not only that, as your agent, I would be your legal fiduciary. That means it's my legal responsibility to keep your financial best interest in mind, and my top priority. Sorry about the cat in the background, guys. All right, so now you're probably curious, if you don't already know, how long do some of these steps take? Well, for the pre-approval, if you have a simple W-2 employment, you work for a company, they pay you, they pay your taxes, things like that. Could take 24 to 48 hours if you're really good about getting all your paperwork into Eileen. If you're someone like me who's self-employed, might take a little bit longer to get that all together. Could take maybe a week. What about showings? Well, they really take as long as you want. You walk through a door and you tell me, Alex, this place is, not for me. I got to get out of here. We're done. We're gone. But if you're in there and you're absolutely loving it, and you want, to look at every nook and cranny of this house and, do everything we possibly can before the open house is over, we're going to be there for 30 minutes. We're going to be there for an hour, whatever it takes. The offer itself, we'll write it together. But generally, you're going to hear back if you're accepted within 24 to 48 hours. And if it is accepted and you choose to do an inspection, those can take generally 2 to 3 hours. And while you'll be there with the inspector, getting all this information right out of their mouth, as they're looking at stuff, pointing at it, taking pictures for you, giving you advice, they are going to also give you a report on the inspection within 48 hours afterwards. And we do have a question here from Dre. Is Milton, Mass on the list of places you can live to buy a house? Milton is not on the MassDREAMS program, but that doesn't mean you wouldn't qualify for some other fantastic
Exactly.
programs. So hang in there, Dre, and we'll definitely get you in touch with Eileen so that you can get some more info from her. The appraisal itself, which is where the bank will decide whether the price you're paying for the home is as equal to market value. That usually takes a couple of weeks, but it's always going to happen before the closing, so you'll know that ahead of time. And then closing itself, if you were to get an offer accepted today and you were to buy your home in cash, well, you could close in just a few days. But with a mortgage, it does take a little bit longer. Generally, we're going to see 30 to 45 days right now if there's no outside factors like the sellers don't want to leave for 2 or 3 months, or it's not new construction. MassDREAMS, we're hearing, is taking a little bit longer, but either way, we're looking at 1 to 2 months. Northborough is our next question. We'll get to this soon, guys, as far as the towns go. But thank you again for the chat.
Can I add something about what you just said?
Please
Alex?
do.
Also, guys, as a buyer working with a full service certified buyer's representative, you don't pay the commission. The sellers pay the commission. The listing agent is where the commission comes from. So there's no downside to you working with a full service broker. A lot of times people will say to me, well, my aunt is a real estate agent, but she doesn't know this market. She doesn't live here. She's trying to help you out. But if she doesn't know the market and she doesn't know the other agents around, because here's the thing, the listing agents have a lot of clout with their sellers, and they want to work with people that they like and trust. So if they don't know your aunt or uncle or whatever the case may be, they may pick another offer because their only goal is to get to the closing table with as much money for their sellers as possible with the least amount of problems. So that's my 2 cents. 2
Thank
cents
you,
in
Eileen.
20 years. Yeah.
I appreciate those kind words and
Yeah.
definitely agree. A
Yeah.
huge part of my job is educating my clients and helping them make great decisions and meet their real estate goals. And another gigantic part of that is the relationship building that I do with other members of the transaction. So that is something I've been doing my whole life, and I really know that I can help you do that as well. And just to put it on paper here, these are the certifications that I possess currently. There's always more to come. That's something that I enjoy greatly, is taking classes. The only good thing that has come out of COVID is the amount of classes that have moved to online and you're actually able to attend and find time for. So I really appreciate that. But in general, like Eileen said, like I've said, having a expert project manager on your side to coordinate everything involved and to keep you updated and make sure that you don't miss anything is vital. If you miss certain dates during the process, your deposit monies, which can be up to 5% or more of the purchase price of a home, could be at risk. So having somebody on your side that is an expert is so important. And with that, one more time, I will just pop in my contact info to the chat box here for you guys. If you would like to speak with me further about making your first purchase, whether it be with the MassDREAMS program or not, I am here to help. You can book a call right on my personal calendar, and we'll get to talking from there. And without further ado, I'd like to hand the floor over to my partner here, Eileen, to talk to you more about her services. And I'm going to put her info in the chat as well.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, I don't have that scheduling the booking appointments online. He's very fancy. I'm going to add that in the new year, though. We have that too, but I just haven't done it. Anyway, so Guaranteed Rate is the company that I work for. We are a lender. We are actually the second largest privately held lender in the country. We did $116 billion in loans last year. That was our biggest year ever, and we're in all 50 states. And I can help friends and family pretty much in every state as well. And I'm personally licensed in like 9 states or something. So, oh, top 3, sorry. No, I think we're 2 now, but anyway, yeah. So we're still run by the same man who started our company 22 years ago. And he is an active leader. We really pride ourselves on customer service. That's what it's all about, because even though we're in the trenches and we do this all day long, every day, and Alex is not joking when he says, you know, we're the ones that know what's going on in the market. During the busy seasons, we're working 6 and 7 days a week, many hours a day. So you get the advantage of having people with boots on the ground, basically. So I have many different products, but tonight we're mostly going to talk about mass housing, because we're really fortunate in Massachusetts that we have such an amazing nonprofit bond program. Other states don't have programs nearly as good as this. Massachusetts really leads in this type of program. So we want to explore it for you guys, because there's money out there and we'd like you to be able to get it. You want to go to the next slide? So we have a completely digital application that you would do online yourself. It's very user-friendly. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes. And normally what I like to do with people is I usually talk to them first, sort of get a sense of who they are. They get a sense of who I am. I get some of the basic information, and then I have them go do the application. So I can match sort of what they put in the application with what they've told me and make sure that there's no human errors, because we all make them, you know, like you think it's asking for what your bonus is per month and you put it in for per year and the math doesn't make sense. So I like to double check. I'm a big proponent of dotting my I's and crossing my T's, because you're depending on me to make sure that I know what I'm doing. And that's what I do to protect you, to make sure that I've checked all the math. So this way you do the application online and you can actually print out a pre-approval letter. But what I like to do is customize them, because you may actually qualify for more than you're looking to spend. So we like to have the human interaction. So it's sort of the best of both worlds. It's like an online lender, but it's not, because we're real and we're here. But it allows you to sort of do it very quickly in the convenience of your own home whenever it works for you. Okay, next slide. So we do have a program. If somebody knows what kind of loan they're going to get, it's not like a blanket kind of thing, but with rates going up, we have the ability, if somebody is really actively looking right now, we have the ability to lock the rate now, even though they haven't found a property, for up to 90 days. But there are, like everything else, there's overlays, and we need to know exactly which product we're going to use, whether it's mass housing or whether it's something else, to know. Yeah, that's okay, Alex. Go ahead. Yeah. So basically, this is generic. This is not absolutely for every single person, okay? But if you're a regular W-2 employee, most of the time we're only going to need 1 month of pay stubs, the most recent ones, all consecutive weeks. Depending on a couple of things, we may need 1 month or 2 months of asset statements, meaning bank statements, checking accounts, savings account, 401ks, investments, that kind of thing. For mass housing, we normally actually need 3 years of tax returns. And then we need the HR contact information so that we can get what's called a written verification of employment, especially if somebody is not like salaried, but they get paid by the hour, and maybe they've had a couple of increases in their pay, and maybe they get some overtime and they get bonus. So we got to calculate all of that and add it all in. And then you can see down at the bottom where it's saying, you know, for some people, a pre-qualification, depending on who you're talking to, they may not even really know anything about you. They may have barely just pulled your credit. And in some cases, I find they didn't even do that, but they qualified somebody just on what they said. Oh, I make $75,000 a year. Okay, Mr. Smith, you make $75,000 a year. You can qualify for XYZ. But they didn't even look at their credit to see they have a car loan, or they have a car lease, or they have student loans. So that's why it's very important to work with a professional. My background was in finance, and then I got into the mortgage business. It'll be 20 years. It's actually just shy of 20 years. It'll be 20 years in February. So anyway, that's sort of the only kinds of documents we need. Now, if somebody is self-employed, it's going to be different, but that's the basics. Okay. So there are 4 major different kinds of loans, but tonight we're going to talk about mass housing. Now, mass housing is a conventional loan, okay? When you have a pre-approval, sometimes realtors that aren't that familiar with mass housing, they're like, well, is it going to say mass housing on it? Is the listing agent going to be concerned? No, mass housing is a conventional loan. It doesn't say anywhere on the pre-approval that it's a mass housing loan. Mass housing, it must be owner occupied. It most probably is usually just for first-time home buyers. You have to have decent to good credit, and there is down payment assistance, which makes it really special because there's not that much of that. And it's very helpful. You can see conventional is similar, except there's no down payment assistance. FHA is the easiest to qualify for, but FHA is not the best product out there. Sometimes it's the right product, but not always, especially because we have mass housing.
Eileen, we had a,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry, we had one question. What do you mean by a conventional loan?
Okay, thank you. So they categorize loans in these 4 different sections, basically. Government loans would be a VA loan, an FHA loan, or a USD loan, USDA. Those are what are called government loans. Conventional, have you heard the names Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae? So those are, it doesn't always mean a fixed rate. It could be an adjustable rate mortgage also, but that's fine. But what it basically means is Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are the 2 huge quasi-governmental agencies that basically make all the rules as far as who qualifies and who doesn't qualify and how you qualify somebody for a loan. About 80% of the loans in the US are conventional loans, which means they're underwritten to the guidelines of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. And that's really the only thing you need to know. And yes, they come in adjustable rate mortgages and they come in fixed rate mortgages. Does that help? Did that sort of answer that question? Who is considered a first-time home buyer? Is there a time frame? So for mass housing, if I have to absolutely confirm this for sure, but mass housing, you are supposed to be a first-time home buyer, which means you have not bought before. However, I think possibly, not absolutely yet, and I need to confirm this, I think if it was 15 years ago, and it's not going to show anywhere on your credit report because it was so long ago, I think you might be okay. And we will find out for you to make sure. Does that help? Okay.
These are great questions, guys.
Cool. Excellent. Okay, great. Next slide. Okay, so here's what we came here to talk about, right? So, is everyone taking notes? I hope, because it's a lot of information and it can get really confusing. Thank you. Yes, thumbs up. Excellent. Great, great, great. Yes. Okay. So, in order to qualify for the MassDREAMS program, which it goes along with a regular mass housing loan, it doesn't stand on its own. Okay, it doesn't stand on its own. It has to be matched up with a regular first-time home buyer mass housing program. But for right now, we're just going to talk about the MassDREAMS. So if you were to buy something for, let's just say, $500,000, okay? 5% of that would be $25,000. So you could potentially qualify for $25,000 for the down payment plus the applicable closing cost assistance. And we'll talk about that in a minute. In order to even know whether you qualify, you must currently live in one of the towns. Alex, do we have one of the slides that shows what the towns are? If not, I can read through it.
Yep, it's on the next slide. So
yeah, so Attleboro, Barnstable.
Yep, sorry.
Boston, all the communities of Boston, Brockton, Chelsea, Chicopee, Everett, Fall River, Fitchburg, Framingham, Haverhill, Holyoke, Lawrence, Leominster, Lowell, Lynn, Malden, Methuen, New Bedford, Peabody, Pittsfield, Quincy, Randolph, Revere, Salem, Springfield, Taunton, Westfield, and what else? What was the last one?
Worcester.
Worcester. Okay. So if you do not live in one of these towns currently, you cannot qualify for this program. Okay. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. So now you live in one of these towns. The next step we look at is your income. So for all of Suffolk County, Essex County, Middlesex, Norfolk, and Plymouth County, for all of them, the income guideline in order to potentially qualify for no, you don't. You can buy anywhere in Massachusetts, but you must currently live in one of those towns, okay? But you can buy anywhere in Mass. So we've already determined you live in one of the 29 communities, so that's great. The next thing we look at, besides looking at your credit to make sure you qualify, you must be a minimum of a 640 middle FICO score. And the way that gets done is, let's say there's two people on the loan. We look at the credit for both people. That's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. We throw out the high score and the low score. Then we're left with two middle scores. They're not averaged. It's just the two middle scores. It is the lower of the two people's middle scores that is the score that we use. So you must be over a 640 mid FICO. That's the next thing that we look at. But before we even get there, we look at the income. So for instance, in any of those counties that you want to buy in, as long as you got through this first hurdle of where you currently live, so it would be Essex, Suffolk, Middlesex, Norfolk, and Plymouth County. If your income of everybody that's going on the loan, okay, is under $133,300, you would qualify potentially for up to the $50,000. If your income is over that $133,300, but under $179,955, let's just call it $180,000, then you could qualify for the $35,000 grant. Okay. So we've gotten over a couple of hurdles. First hurdle is you got to live in one of those communities. Second hurdle is we got to check what your income is. And sometimes when people have two jobs or, you know, they work overtime, it takes us a little bit of time to get absolutely the right answer. Okay. Because we have to get the information from your jobs. And sometimes those people get it to us right away, and sometimes it takes a little bit of time. So now we've gotten through the second hurdle. You make, let's just say in this case, under the $133,000. So if you found a property for $500,000, 25,000 of it would go to the down payment. And closing cost prepaids and escrows, which we'll go into a little bit. It's pretty much everything you have to pay for the underwriting, the processing of the loan, the attorney's fees, the appraisal, building an escrow account for the taxes and the insurance, days of interest, all of that kind of stuff. It comes in somewhere around roughly between 1.5% and like 2.25% of the purchase price. That's not the way it's calculated at all. It's just a shorthand version that we use. So let's just say in this case, $12,000 for all of that. So the 25,000 plus the 12,000 puts you at 37. And now you may be able to, now this part is a little trickier, so don't hang your hats on it. We might be able to use the rest of the $50,000 to help lower your interest rate. But that part of this equation with mass housing is very tricky. So we'll have to see, okay? I'll stop there to see if there's any questions right now. Alex, have you been answering them?
Yes, I think
I
we've
think so. So
answered
we're
all the
caught up
questions.
on that. Okay, great.
Yep.
Does
Yep.
anyone have any new questions on that little bit of information that we just said? Not for escrow. No, 12,000. That was just a random figure. That was for all the closing cost prepaids and escrows. So there's underwriting fees, processing, credit report, attorney fees, title searches. You have to do lender's title insurance, owner's title insurance, the appraisal, government recording, because everything has to be recorded. And then you build an escrow account because you're not going to be paying your taxes and your insurance separately. It's going to be paid through your mortgage. So you sort of have to pay upfront about 4 to 6 months of taxes, depending on when you're closing. And if you're buying a property that needs homeowners insurance, you pay for about 16 months of insurance upfront. But that's much less. That's like, depending if it's a condo or it's a house, it's maybe, $40 to $125 a month. But that gets paid upfront. But don't worry about that for right now. So that's how we just came up with that approximate $12,000. Because most of the fees are fixed, whether you're buying a $400,000 house or a $4 million house. The things that are variable is every town has different taxes. Some of the properties you're looking at, if they're condos, you may not need to do homeowners insurance. If you're buying something at $400,000 versus, $1 million, the cost of certain things are going to be less expensive. But the attorney fees are going to be fixed. The underwriting and the processing is going to be fixed. The government recording fees are going to be fixed. So there's not going to be any surprises. You're going to know everything up front. So then along with that, in order to qualify for mass housing, it has to be a primary residence. And you have to complete the first-time homebuyer class, which we have access. I teach first-time homebuyer classes in Somerville through a nonprofit. So I have connections for you so that you can do the application, not the application. You can do the classwork on your own online. And then you normally just have to go in person to do the rest of the application with them for them to give you the certification. Somerville is not one of the 29 towns. The 29 towns are all showing up here. If you can see that, it starts with Attleboro and it ends with Worcester. You can certainly buy in Somerville, but it's not one of the towns, if you currently live there, that would allow you to qualify for this program. But like Alex said, we've got other first-time homebuyer programs for you through Mass Housing where you can be buying anywhere in the state, okay?
I can't stress enough, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
how many tools Eileen has in her tool belt after 20 years. It's not even just all the varieties and flavors of mass housing, but there are lots and lots of programs that she can help you with to, get you into a home.
Right, right. Because for some people, as much as it's wonderful to get this potential grant money, and when we say grant, we mean grant, there is no payback on this money. This money is very, very special, and it is going to be gone very quickly. But we have other first-time home buyer programs. I'll just briefly chat on it because I don't want to get you guys confused. There's one program. Is there anything for the towns and cities not listed? Okay, so I think where people are getting confused is the fact that if you currently live in one of these 29 communities, you have a potential to qualify for the MassDREAMS grant. This grant, if you get it, has no payback, zero. You could buy the house, live in it for a year and move to Timbuktu and sell it, and you wouldn't have to pay the money back, okay? It has to be tied in with another mass housing program. Okay. Then along with that, there are two different mass housing first-time home buyer programs. One of them, the easiest one to qualify for, again, as long as you're within the income guidelines, which is a little different for that, and you meet the credit level, and all the others could potentially give you a $15,000 grant that does have a payback to it, but it's like $95 a month, okay? Then they have another program, which is the most difficult to qualify for because the income level is very low and it goes by the number of people in the household. So if you have a family that has 4 children, Alex and I are working with somebody right now. It's a mom and a dad and 4 children. They might potentially qualify for this other program, which would give them more grant money that has 0 monthly payment. But if they sell the house or they refinance, they owe the money back to mass housing. So that's why I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that because it'll just confuse you guys probably. Let's just focus on the MassDREAMS for right now. And then for anybody who doesn't live in one of those 29 communities that we've got focused here, we will help you and figure out what other options you have. Don't think because you don't live in one of these towns, there's nothing we can do for you, okay? So our job here is to help you see the options and help you have success. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Alex, I'm going to let you keep answering the questions because you're doing a great job of it. So what's the next page?
Thanks, Eileen.
Thank you.
I just finally got a second screen, and boy, is it wonderful for Zoom meeting.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, yeah, I mean, here's the thing that I tell all my first-time home buyers. You're going to change your priorities on what you spend money on. I mean, I know with the pandemic, everyone has changed things. It's, we've had so many things that have changed, but if you're used to going out to dinner a couple of times a week or, just go shopping just to go shopping, you're going to decide, do I really need to do that? Because I'm a homeowner now and I need to make sure that my mortgage is paid on time every month. It's the most important thing. And that I'm working on building equity and building home ownership and taking control of my destiny. And so, yes, doing a budget is great. And when we look at the credit, we'll see, okay, how does this work? Do we have enough? Do we need you to pay off a few things or maybe not? One of the tricks that we do is if you have a car loan, not a car lease, and it's a loan, if you're 10 payments or less from owning the car outright, we can exclude that payment completely. So sometimes maybe you're at 15 payments and the car payment is like, $300 a month. And I go, hey, not now, not until we have something under agreement. You don't need to do it ahead of time, but hey, If you were to use some of that money you have and pay down your car loan to 10 payments, I can just exclude that. And that gives us more buying power. So we've got lots of things. And that's why I'm saying it's very individualized. Everyone is different. Everyone's credit profile is different. Everyone's job is different. So it really takes, a pro looking at it and figuring out, okay, where can we make this work? Sometimes, unfortunately, we can't. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. If somebody has had credit problems in the past and they never did anything to fix their credit and they thought it was going to fix on its own, that does not happen. You know what stagnant water looks like, guys? That's what happens. Everybody's made mistakes in the past. We all were young and got credit cards and ran them up. I mean, I remember a friend telling me years ago, it's like it's free money. I'm like, no, it isn't. Especially somebody who has a background in finance. No, that is not free money. That is an illusion. But if you had problems in the past and you're like, no, I'm not a credit person. I'm just not a credit person. I'll pay cash for everything. Then you're not going to be able to get very far. You can, and you can change that, but you can't change it on a dime, depending on what the circumstances are. Sometimes you can fix things in 3 to 6 months. Sometimes you need a little more time than that. But anything is possible if people are, what is the word I'm looking for? Motivated, right? If you're motivated to become a homeowner so that you're not at the mercy of a landlord and all of a sudden your building's sold and now the new landlord wants X, Y, or Z or wants you out because they want to move their family in. And then you're out in the market looking at the rents and you're like, oh boy, what am I doing now? So we'll get into that in a minute. Next slide.
I think we kind of covered this a little bit already.
We did. So
Yeah.
that's the cost of, just go back to it for just a second, Alex.
Sorry.
So that's okay. So again, this is not this is not the formula. It's just an idea so that you know, okay, I'm buying something at 500,000 and I've got 5% of my own money, which is 25,000, and I'm going to get this grant. So it's going to allow me to put 10% down. But just so I know, okay, I've got 25,000, and then those closing costs they were talking about, that's going to be somewhere between 1.5% and 2.5% of the purchase price. And that includes everything. Okay. Okie doke. So this slide is, we wanted to show you guys sort of like the cost of waiting to get a sense on, don't get scared off by all this math, okay? So the first column is if you bought something at 500,000 and you put 10% down. Alex, can you enlarge that just a little bit? Maybe not.
Not on the slide.
Okay, never mind.
I'm sorry.
Never mind. No, that's okay. Don't you worry about it. Okay, so you buy something for 500,000 and you're putting 10% down. It's showing you what the monthly P&I is. That's principal and interest. The taxes, again, these are estimates, right? The taxes, repairs, monthly expenses. Then it shows you in the second column, the rent, and the rent is actually a little bit less. And maybe you're spending a little bit on homeowners insurance, condo insurance, okay? Renters insurance. Then you go to year 9, and you see that year 9, the rents have kept going up, and we know that rents have really been going up. And so you see that after a period of time, not only are you basically paying the same that you would for rent, but you've had appreciation. So you're building your net worth. You're building your family's net worth. Because instead of you paying somebody else's mortgage, which, listen, guys, if you rent, somebody owns the building. You're paying their mortgage. It just doesn't come across like that. So in those 9 years, using fairly conservative figures, you would potentially have an appreciation on what you bought of over $280,000, as well as you would have paid down some of your principal to the tune of almost $60,000. And in the red up above is what you would have paid for rents. So this is, it's sort of a sobering kind of graph, and obviously it's not exact. And as Alex mentioned earlier, we don't have a crystal ball, but historically, systematically, decade after decade, real estate and home ownership here in America is the pathway to stability and family wealth. It is. So on to the next slide, unless there's a question on that one. No, we're cool.
No questions so far.
All right, excellent. So this one, oh boy, I wish I could see that.
Oh, sorry.
My fault. My fault. I should get it up on my screen on the other side. So I think what this one is showing is
It's talking about the amount that you're going to be gaining over time based
thank
on
you so much.
as opposed to losing based on paying someone else's mortgage. Just
Okay,
just
thank you.
reiterating
Excellent.
kind of
There we
what
go.
you've made
Okay.
before.
So the first couple of years, you're a little bit in the red, right? Because you put the money down and you put the closing costs down and everything else. But then it builds slowly and, conservatively. It builds over time. And then when you get to the end of year 9, it's showing you a net gain minus your down payment, minus the closing costs, a net gain of over $200,000.
And something to think about when you see this number after just 9 years is the average time people spend in their first home is about 8 to 9 years.
That's right.
And now you can also, understand why folks that are buying their second home, especially in this area, they might have bought their first home for $400,000 to $600,000, but now they're buying their second home and they're able to put a much larger down payment down. They probably are making a little bit more in their career and they're more stable because of all this equity gain. They're able to go and buy a home in a different tier level, and they're looking up at $800,000 to $1 million properties.
Maybe they have children now, maybe they want to be in a different school system, whatever the case may be. But Alex is absolutely right. That 8 to 9 year average, that is nationally, historically, the level of time that people are in a house.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Eileen. Anything else that you wanted to add?
Don't be afraid by all the bad news that you hear. Remember that they're just trying to sell advertising space also. And I still remember an old professor using this term of what bleeds leads. And it's really true. The bad news, keep people engaged. The sky is falling. Are we in a tough time? Yes, of course we're in a tough time. There's no question about that. But out of tough times comes people who take action and come through the other side much healthier. And if you've read anything about people talking about this is going to be like the mortgage meltdown, I was in the industry during the mortgage meltdown. This is not going to be anything like the mortgage meltdown. We had risky loans then. In fact, I'll tell you one quick story. It was at a time that we actually used to have representative for the different investors that would come around to our offices. And we'd go, I've got these people, this is what they're looking for. What do you think? What do you got? That kind of thing. And I remember this guy worked for Bear Stearns from Wall Street. And he was a good representative. And he came in and he goes, I can do 100% financing down to a 500. And I looked at him and I said, are you guys nuts? Like, really, are you nuts? Like, somebody's going to get into a house. They have very little credit. They're not putting any money down. And you're going to put them in an adjustable rate mortgage where they're probably going to get in trouble. I mean, I didn't know all of it at that point. I don't have a crystal ball, but I knew enough to look at him and say, this is crazy. Okay. So this is not our market. This is not our market. And Boston is one of the most stable markets in the country because we're so diversified. And we have all these students that used to come to classes, maybe they will again. And then they decide Boston's a really wonderful place. And then we have education and we have medical and we have, we have high tech and we have biomedical and everything else. So this is a very good place to buy. I know it's more expensive. I know it takes more of your income to do it, but where there's a will, a lot of times there's a way, and we will help you. We will partner with you to help you have success.
Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I hope you guys learned a lot. And if you do have any further questions right now, feel free to shoot them out there in the chat or unmute and join the conversation.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, Joel. All right. Well, one more time, I'm going to put our contact info in the chat. Make sure you take a screenshot of it, or the easiest thing you can do is click my booking link, set up a call, and I will connect you with Eileen as well, just to make it easy for her too. And yeah, if there's no other questions, we can wrap
I guess
it up.
I would just say one more thing, actually.
Please,
the last thing I would say is don't be shy. Don't think you need to have all the answers right now. You may not be ready, but you don't know unless you try. And I think, you're gonna have to get out of your comfort zones. I mean, some of you, this may not be out of your comfort zone at all. You may have been planning this for years and now you're ready and you've been doing all of this. But just trust that we will help you figure it out. And maybe you're not ready, but you might be surprised.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, one of my very good friends who used to work with me, she really did not think that she could afford to buy a home. And, we're so great, we're great friends. So she's talking to me about it. And I said, hey, how about we sit down and have a real conversation? And I set you up with a lending partner. And I did. And 2 months later, they're in their first home. And they had no idea that was going to be possible. So you really do never know. And not only that, I mentioned earlier, a big part of my job and Eileen's job is educating people. And even if you're not ready to make a purchase right now, just talking to us and finding out what you're capable of or not capable of is helpful, because then you can create that path towards your future instead of just having this amorphous goal of, oh, I want to buy a house someday. Right. You need to set, a true goal with a timeline and numbers to it, monthly savings and things like that in order to get there. Because you're right, if there's a will, there's a way. And if there's a plan, you'll actually make it there.
Definitely. Absolutely. I did see a few more questions come in. What were they, Alex?
So Adam was asking, so the program within the 29 towns is a $50,000 grant for under $127,000 in income. Some sort of. So there are a lot of caveats. So what I would love you to do is connect directly with Eileen so she can talk about your specific financial situation and get you the correct answer. BL asked, what about rates? Will they change soon? Well, the Fed
all the time.
Yeah, they change every day, every minute, day. Really. The Fed is meeting again in a few weeks. They're projected to raise the federal rates, not the mortgage rates. They don't do that, but they are connected in a way. Right. They're projected to raise them another 0.5 point. And we're all assuming that's going to continue to happen for the near future. So even though rates will go down someday because they are cyclical, for now they are going to go up, and prices are most definitely going to go up because inventory is not getting more available, especially in our area
here. But a shining light on that, as Alex said, the mortgage rates do not come from the Fed rate, but they're connected, as everything is connected, of course. But rates have actually stabilized a little bit over the last week or two. We do expect them to go up again. we do expect, hopefully, sometime in 23, maybe mid to late 23, rates will go down. But here's what people do now. They buy now. If they have all the things, all the pieces, they buy now, and then because it is cyclical, there will be another refi opportunity in the future at some point. I've been through enough cycles that I know they go up and they go down. And when they go down, we do another refi on people. That's what we do. So don't make that hold you back. Don't put the obstacles in front of you before you have all the information, because the information is really what you need. And like Alex said, everybody's situation is different. Does that help? What were the other questions, Alex?
The one we just missed was, do all FHA lenders have access to this program in Massachusetts?
Absolutely not. And if you're talking to somebody who is saying that they're just an FHA lender, I'm going to peel back the curtain and tell you something, okay? Lenders that specialize in FHA loans, they do it specifically because they know that product really well, and then they don't know any other products. So they sort of force feed you into an FHA loan. Now, there's a time and a place for an FHA loan, but not every single person who's qualifying as a first-time home buyer should be doing an FHA loan. Yes, it's 3.5% down, but the downside to it very quickly is, first off, there is an upfront fee that is on every single FHA loan. Most people roll it into the mortgage. It is 1.75%. So if you're only putting 3.5% down, it's almost like you only put 1.75% down, because they're going to add that fee. Mortgage insurance, which is way more expensive on an FHA loan, stays on the loan for the life of the loan. So there are disadvantages. Also, you cannot have, the appraisal is different, which is the reason listing agents don't like it. You cannot have an inch, I mean an inch, of peeling or chipping paint anywhere inside or out. I'm sorry, we live in New England. People paint their houses and they constantly need to paint their houses. And you, as the buyer of the house, don't have the right to do that work yet because you don't own it. The seller has to do it. So there's a lot of reasons against an FHA loan, but sometimes it's the right product for people.
Yep. And I'm
that's
here
why
to help you work with a listing agent that's afraid of FHA loans, because
Oh,
I've
yeah.
used them before and I'm very comfortable in educating the listing agent and the seller to understand that it can be a really wonderful product. But when you're up against mass housing, much better loan to
Much
work
better
with.
loans. Yeah. What else did we miss, Alex?
I think I answered the question about how could you refi so soon after buying.
Oh, you
but
answered that already? Good for
yeah.
you. Wow. Doing my job, bud.
No
Okay.
problem. Done it myself.
Yes. Yeah. You have to hold on to the loan for a period of time. It just has to season with the investor. But then, if the time is right and the numbers make sense, then you can refi. Usually I'd say conservatively, the earliest you're going to refi is maybe 9 months or so, occasionally a little bit shorter than that, but, and sometimes
So
it takes a couple of years.
Yeah,
We
but
don't
it
know
could be
for
quicker
sure.
than you expect. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Are there any final questions for us tonight, folks? Okay.
I have
All
a
right, well,
question about the
oh, yes.
refi.
Go ahead,
About the
Leopold.
refi. So my thing is like, how do you still get ready the same way as if you're buying a house? When you do a refi, do you have to make sure your credit's all set? What other things? What's the difference between when you're buying a house and when you do a refi? What do you have to get ready?
Great question.
I didn't hear all of it.
They're asking, is the process to refinancing similar to the process of getting your first mortgage, like your pre-approval and then your actual mortgage?
It's faster, it's easier. When you come back to me and we're doing a refi, we may be looking at, a different kind of loan or a different short time. We just have to check the income and the credit again and the assets. If you need assets, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have enough equity in the property and you just do a refinance and everything is rolled into it. And the refinance is oftentimes faster because you're not waiting for, the property to be available, the owners needing to move out or anything, but it's very similar and it becomes much easier the second time because you've been through it already. Does that help?
Yes. Do you need certain type of equity before you can refi?
Do you have what?
How much
Certain
equity do you
equity.
need?
Very good question. Excellent. I would say conservatively, if you put, let's say you put 10% down and you have mortgage insurance, if the rates really come down quickly, you might refinance and still be at that 90% mark. But normally, if you're going to want to try to be, maybe at an 80% loan to value, which means 20% equity, maybe a 15%, but it really depends again, because, for some people, the rule of thumb that I like to work with is, hey, this is going to save you X amount a month. Is that enough? Does that make sense to you? Yes, because my break even on the costs are like a year and a half, 2 years. Absolutely. So again, it's not one size fits all. So I'm not trying to be vague on the answers. I'm trying to give you the information enough so that wait a second, everybody's case is a little different. So let's just figure it out. I mean, I was able to refi after I bought this last property about 8 months after I bought it and got rid of, I had mortgage insurance on this and I got rid of it, so that was part of it. I lowered my rate and I got rid of my mortgage insurance. So there's all different kinds of ways to do this. And I have every kind of product that there is. So you're not going to somebody that, oh, I'm an FHA lender, I only have FHA. They're doing you a disservice if they're telling you this is the product for you. Now, it could be it is the only product for you. Maybe your scores are a little bit lower, and maybe your debt to income ratio, which is another very important component, is a little too high for conventional. FHA is a little more forgiving. But if there's a way to get you into a mass housing program instead of FHA, I would do that all day long because it's much, much better.
I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I used the mass housing loan to buy my first property. And it was fantastic. Best thing I ever did in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can you use both the mass housing and the MassDREAM grant at the same time?
You
Yes.
need to, actually.
You need to. Oh,
That's
okay.
right.
Yep.
The MassDREAMS is like a supplement that goes along with one of the mass housing programs for first-time home buyers. So the only thing that we didn't answer absolutely was if somebody owned a property 15 years ago, would they still qualify as a first-time home buyer? And I will get that answer. Do we know who it was that asked that question?
Let's see. If you're still here, shout it out. Otherwise, I'm scrolling back. Oh, we had a lot of great questions. I can't even find
Sure
it.
did.
Oh, here we go. That was Isaiah. Or Isa, excuse me.
So we'll try to get you that answer, okay? Or reach out to us if you want. So is it Lysah?
I've got it.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's actually Lisa, and
Oh,
I
it's
just
Lisa.
sent you. It's Lisa, yeah.
It's lowercase. I'm so
It's-
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And I just reached out, sent you an email, Eileen, as well.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Lisa.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Okay. And then somebody else just poked up a question. What was that?
Are there any good in-laws houses in this market? Oh, homes with in-laws in them?
Oh,
Oh, for sure. I mean, we can always find those properties, and I can help you search for stuff like that. They're very, they're more common in some markets than others, but they're all over the place in Greater Boston. All right. Any other questions, folks? Okay. Well, I will just say thank you again so much for your time, everybody. For the 10th time, I'm going to put our contact info in here, but we will reach out to you to see if you need anything from us at all. And Eileen, thank you so much for your extremely knowledgeable discussion here and all these great questions that you've
my
answered for us.
pleasure. Thank you. It was such a great group. Everyone asked such wonderful questions. And don't be afraid, like just dip your toe in the water, see what happens.
We like talking about this stuff if you guys haven't figured that out yet. So there's no questions we aren't happy to answer.
Can we talk about anything else, Alex? Animals, basically.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. And food. That's about it.
Animals, food, and real estate, basically.
Yep.
That's what we do.
Cool.
Thank
well,
you,
speaking
guys.
of which,
Thank you
we
so
should get
much.
to dinner. And yeah, thank you guys again. Have a great evening.
Good night.